Hi, and welcome back to another episode of Branching Out with F&M Bank. I'm your host, Mary Pavlovskaya, and today I'm joined by Renee Whitmore of Old Dominion Realty. We're so glad to have you, and so tell us a little bit about what you do as a real estate agent.
So Mary, as you mentioned, I sell real estate, which is more than just showing houses to folks. It's really leading them through the process from the first decision to purchase up until they actually get the keys and move in. So educating them through the process is really what I do mostly.
Wow, so you must really understand the market and what each consumer is looking for, each of your homeowners are looking for, either new or reoccurring. What does that look like usually?
So after 16 years of real estate experience, it really kind of honing that skill of kind of feeling out what people want. A lot of times folks can have an idea in their head of what they're really looking for, but as you get into the process and you're starting to look with them, that might change and evolve as they realize what their real needs are.
So do you have any advice for potentially new homeowners or buyers who haven't been out in the market in the last couple of years? What would be your first advice to them?
Be ready. Just to be ready. So the number one advice that I give to anyone who's looking to buy a new home is to get with their lender, their bank, and find out exactly what their finances look like so that they can start that process. It's really difficult to get into looking at houses if you're not really sure what price range you need to be looking at. So getting a pre-qualification or a pre-approval from your lender is really that very first step that I give to homeowners or home buyers to do.
That's really good advice, knowing how much money you can work with. It really starts off the process, right?
That's right, because we could be looking in any sort of price range, but if you can't afford it, that doesn't do you any good. On the flip side of that, a lot of times folks can, especially in today's real estate market, with real estate mortgage interest rates being so low, a lot of times they can afford a lot more than what they expect that they can afford because the interest is so cheap.
Well, let's talk a little bit about the interest and how that's affected. Recently, I understand the market's gone to a seller's market, is that correct?
That is correct.
So what does that kind of look like?
Yeah, so several years ago we were in a buyer's market, and what that looked like was oversupply, tons of houses on the market, and not a lot of buyers. And now what we're seeing, in the past, I would say 3 to 5 years, we've seen a shift to, as you referred to, a seller's market. And what that means is there's fewer properties on the market for sale, so less supply, and there's more demand. So we have tons of buyers out there looking. And what that's looking like on the back end is maybe multiple offers, so several buyers may be looking for the same property and offering on that same property to someone else, which could potentially lead to higher than list price. So there's a lot of different factors that go into that, but it's really just economics 101, supply versus demand.
Right.
Currently, low inventory, high demand.
Now, have you seen an impact of COVID in the housing market? Has that affected it going from a seller's to a buyer's market in any way, shape, or form?
I would say that it really has not impacted the market, so to speak, in that kind of way. We did see a slight pause in the real estate market in March. So when we had sort of that lockdown announcement that started mid-March, we saw a really quick pause in the real estate market for about 2 to 4 weeks. And in Virginia, real estate was still deemed to be an essential business. So we were able to remain open and to meet with clients and to show houses and list houses for sale. So our business was impacted very little by that, and maybe the impact that we could be seeing is that we have fewer houses for sale because folks are a little more nervous to put it on the market and to have folks coming through their house for sale. So could potentially be impacted a little bit, but our local market is really strong. We've had record number of sales in 2020 versus the previous years. So it's hard to say that we've been impacted in a negative way when we're really seeing the sales as strong as they are this year.
Now, you mentioned a comment about allowing people to walk through homes. Are you having to do anything like virtual tours, or are there homeowners that are afraid to have people come through their house but they still want to sell, or has there anything been done on that front?
So we have seen a little bit of a different way of doing business. as we are doing a little bit more virtual. So I have some clients who, and it's really more of an impact of them just not being close by, where the new technology and the comfort level with the new technology, I've been doing a little bit more virtual tours through homes for clients. But I haven't really seen too many sellers who've been worried about folks entering their house. We are taking some precautions when we do enter houses, wearing masks, of course, and using Clorox wipes or antibacterial wipes and that sort of thing as we go through houses. So we are taking some precautions with COVID, but it's not really impacting showing houses or getting folks into houses to take a look at them.
Well, that's great. It's good to hear that there is at least one industry that isn't as much impacted as everyone else is, which is good to hear that people are still going out and buying houses, which I think is important in keeping the economy going. Now, I want to get into a little bit of our next video about what's going to look like in the next coming year and what maybe you predict a little bit. But first, I want to touch on a little bit of what you talked about with the affordability of the new housing market that we're seeing. So if prices are going up and there's tons of buyers who are putting down offers a couple of days after the house goes on the market, what does that do with the affordability of just the area and what people can pay for the houses that may cost more than they normally do?
That's a great question, Mary. I've been involved with a lot of group discussions specifically about home affordability in Harrisonburg and Rockingham County. One of the biggest things to kind of get over, though, is to know what is home affordability or what is an affordable house. It is a lot different for the different groups. So when I speak about home affordability, I'm really talking about the homeowners, folks that are buying houses, and I'm kind of leaving out that rental market because that is not where my expertise lies. So locally, our houses are becoming a lot more expensive to purchase. So what you're seeing currently is a lot of folks who are in that same buyer pool that once a house comes on the market, they're really all kind of pouncing on that one house. They're all making offers, so you can have multiple offers. I know I've seen in the last year houses that have had 5, 6, 7 offers on them, and that just drives the price up because if folks know that they're competing, they're willing to put their best foot forward. So we are seeing an impact on housing prices locally where they are appreciating at a lot faster pace than what we've been seeing in the previous years.
And that kind of sounds like that pulls into, and I know the renter market is not your expertise, but it sounds like a lot of times if the housing market is too expensive to buy, then you'll see more people shift over to, well, I'll rent for a longer time before I can actually go out and buy a house.
Yes.
Does that impact on what your amount of people who come to you and say, hey, I'd like to buy a house, Renee?
So we aren't seeing a major shift in the amount of demand. So we are still seeing buyers that are wanting to buy. But I did hear a statistic in one of these discussions that we were having that our local rental market has a 2% vacancy rate. And locally in our area or even nationwide, a 5 to 7% is a real healthy market. So when you're seeing vacancy rates that are that low, there's also a demand that's showing a demand for those rental houses as well. And that is also just making the rental market go up at the same time. So we're seeing an increase not only in the home sales price, but also in the rental price because of that demand that's there. So it's just a matter of, we live in a beautiful place. We have a gorgeous surrounding and folks want to live here. So we've got a lot of folks that are moving in, into the area that want to love on our beautiful Shenandoah Valley. No,
absolutely. Especially when you mentioned that it seems like the appreciation of houses is going up, which sounds like it's a perfect time to make an investment if anyone's ever considered to make one when it comes to buying a house.
Yep, and that's also impacting demand. So you have folks that are wanting to make investments that maybe we weren't seeing 5 to 7 years ago. There wasn't a lot of extra money for folks to put into an investment property. So now we're seeing not only homeowners that are purchasing properties, but we're also seeing investors that are coming back out into the world to purchase real estate as an investment property. So that's also having an impact on demand. It's a very complicated sort of real estate market, but it's fun to kind of watch everything and how they react to one another.
Awesome, awesome. Well, I appreciate talking to you today. Thank you for all the information, and I look forward to our next conversation about what the future housing market looks like.
Thanks, Mary.
Thanks for joining us for another episode of Branching Out with F&M Bank.